Alright, so this is my first time checking out Recalbox. This is for the Raspberry Pi 5. I'm using the 8GB model. I really like this layout in the system. When it starts up, it tells you everything that you need to do. Hopefully that's a one-time boot up scenario and not something that happens all the time. Alright, that looks nice. Let's see if we can turn down the music. Using emulation station. Looks like it's a different version or more advanced version. Let me find the sound settings here. Alright, so this is my first time using Recalbox. This is the, I'm using the Raspberry Pi 5 8GB model, and I have this loaded on a 64GB SanDisk Ultra SD card. Should be bootable on a USB. Got a Commodore, Apple II. They put a couple of ROMs in all the file directories just so you can see the systems, which is pretty nice. I don't have this fully loaded as of yet, but we will get to that here in a minute. And one of the things that I haven't seen, I know there's a couple of channels that showed a few Recalbox images, is that all the emulation that I saw was Raspberry Pi 4 based. And so we're going to experiment with some things that would be tailored to the Raspberry Pi 5. I don't think that they have PlayStation 2 loaded on here. So we'll have to dig into the system and see what they have there. And I don't see no cloud gaming, nothing really else. And then we'll have to check and see if the more demanding Sega Saturn games will run, as well as some of the harder to run arcade games. So again, this is my first time. Let's just take a look and see what some of these systems have to offer. All right, looks like we have Kodi. And the cool thing is my controller worked right out of the box, so it's not like I had to set something up like I normally do with RetroPie. Not a big deal, but it's just not good to know that. Let's see, system settings here. Alright, looks like it's using, I have to use a different partition or something. Oh no, I should have formatted. I'm using a 64GB card, so this free total 98%. All right, so I got 98% free. Raspberry Pi 64 bits. We're English QWERTY keyboard. Let's take a look at our BIOS checking. See what we got here. Boot settings, boot on systems. Yeah, we'll just do favorites for now. Leave that as is. Virtual systems, light gun systems off. Alright, we'll turn that back off. Resolutions here, native and global. This is nice. I like this. Like typically with emulation station with RetroPie, you gotta go into some additional settings to change it, but they have everything here. That's pretty cool. And then of course it looks like you could set all the native resolutions here. All right, it's really good. Oh, that's pretty cool. There it tells you what music is playing, so that's really nice as well. Then of course you could set the resolution from the emulation station, so they make this really easy, user friendly, so you can kind of set all this stuff up here directly from the front end. See, we got shaders. We're not gonna mess around with any of this. I'm just kind of taking a look around. Looks like they got the default emulators and stuff here. Yeah, again, if you guys are familiar with RetroPie emulation station, you have to adjust this when you start the game or when you get ready to start, and then you just type AB a couple of times, and then you access that menu. So with this, you can address it or look at it directly from the screen itself. You don't have to go into the game to do it. So this definitely saves a whole lot of time, especially if you're image making and just trying to go through things really quickly to associate. Yeah, so Neo Geo Pocket. All right, so it looks like these are all the systems they have here. They really don't have anything more. All right, they don't have, say, Sony PlayStation 2. There's none of that on here. There's no Xbox. There's no Nintendo Switch. I don't think anybody's compiled Nintendo Switch as of yet, but it's coming. I know we talked about it. I know even on the Orange Pie image, we were doing some things like that, looking at it. Let's see, Sega Saturn, Sega Naomi. Let's see, just PlayStation 1 Portable, Sega Saturn. Yeah, they're all using the same stuff. Alright. Nothing really catching my attention. Alright, so let's see here. Let's take a look at, let's see, output device, that's fine. And remember, the Raspberry Pi 5 also has a dual display, so that's pretty cool. I'm not sure if they plan on incorporating the marquee script. Arcade settings, all in one, UI. Let's see, controller settings. I'm using a Microsoft. I need to check out and see if Bluetooth works efficiently. I know there was a lot of setups and steps that you needed to go through on the Raspberry Pi 4 in order to get the Bluetooth working. I think it was like a 25-minute process. And if you use the Chronos in, it only took like 2 minutes to do it. So I'll have to see if it's much easier pairing. You know what? In fact, let me just see if I can go ahead and do it now. Let's see, the Bluetooth pairing will start and run for several minutes. Let's go ahead and try it. Yeah, I already read my controller, plug and play. Let's see, Bluetooth configure a controller. Alright, I'm going to use my mouse for this. Let's see, I'm going to unplug my Xbox controller. I have it in pairing mode. Oh shoot, what happened? Let's go back. Let's escape out of there. Let's see, configure controller, pair Bluetooth. Alright, there it goes. I think it's connected now. Sweet. Alright, we are wireless. Perfect. That was really simple. So that only took a couple of seconds. So that is a huge improvement. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with Recalbox for the Pi 4, but if that was on the Pi 4, then obviously I'm sure it will work the same. But yeah, that's a huge improvement from what I've seen in the past. All right, so let's go ahead and get this puppy loaded up. We'll jump into some gameplay. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they support PS2, so I don't think any other front end really supports it, but we'll make the best of it and see what they have to offer. All right, so I'm just getting ready to log into my Recalbox image. Again, I'm using a 64 gigabyte card, and if you want to log in using SSH, The password is Recalbox boot, or I'm sorry, Recalbox root, and the user ID is root. So yeah, I thought maybe with the username would have actually been the same as it would be on the network or the host name, but it's not. The user ID is root, and the password is Recalbox root in order to log in successfully. So we're going to proceed further. Go ahead and get this thing loaded up so we can get you guys into some gameplay. All right, so the system directory is a little different. You want to go into share. It looks like all the BIOSes are here. I'll have to double check. If there's any issues, I'll have to load some more, but we should be ready to go right out of the box. And then, of course, these are the ROM folders. Now, typically, if you're familiar with retropie, you would go into retropie, and then it'll say ROMs. And so it's kind of organized the same way. Looks like we have all the supported systems here. I don't see Sega Model 3, so not a big issue, but we'll take a look. We're going to try Die Hard, the arcade game, on here for the Sega Saturn. I want to see how that performs. PlayStation, Super Nintendo, NES, Atari stuff, we're not going to try that. Neo Geo, we're not going to try that. However, I will try NFL Blitz and also Killer Instinct to see what kind of performance we can get out of that. And so I'm going to be loading these from my Raspberry Pi 5 image ROM set. I made a new ROM set. If you guys are a follower of mine, then it's already been made available on the Patreon. So the arcade ROM set for the Pi 5 that I made is approximately 30 gigabytes. And so it has quite a few good things on here. And so it's just enough to get me started. I got tired of dibbling and dabbling and moving things around. So I had to go ahead and create my own little ROM set. All right, so now I'm going to transfer some ROMs over to Recalbox. Now to log in using SSH, we're going to type in 192.168.1.129, which is my IP address. The host name is Recalbox, and the password for this is going to be, let me just pull up here because I wrote it down, Recalbox root. So once we do that, we're going to log in, and we should be able to now transfer ROMs over. All right, and actually the login name was not Recalbox, it was root. So once we are in WinSCP, now I can go ahead and start transferring some ROMs over, and we can get into some exciting gameplay. Now we're going to take a quick look. I just want to show you a little bit what's going on behind the scenes. So these are some of the supported systems that are available for this. I'm not going to download, or I'm not even sure if I can on Recalbox. I know sometimes Bad Sarah has it logged down. But these are the current folders which are available. So I'm just going to copy and paste over some of my ROM sets. Looks like they got a few things here that I haven't seen before, unless these are just entirely brand new. But as you can see, we don't have any PlayStation 2. We do have Sega Saturn, which is a more demanding emulation to run on some of these types of boards. And of course, we got all the other little basic stuff here. So let's go ahead and get this loaded up. We're going to start off with Killer Instinct and NFL Blitz. You guys know some of the harder to run arcade titles. I want to see if they're accurate, because I've noticed in a few videos before that they were running a little bit faster than normal as far as the audio is concerned. So we'll look to see if I can access some of their emulation settings to see what type of speed they're setting up at or running at. All right, so I'm going to log in here. This is my arcade ROM set. If you guys are on my Patreon, you have access to this. This is my arcade Pi 5 ROM set here. And Recalbox looks like it's set up a little differently. Typically, if you have RetroPie or one of the other front ends, you have something here called Arcade, and it does not look like it's available. So this could get a little confusing, because all of my arcade ROM sets here are comprised of MAME and Final Burn Alpha, so I may have to separate some of the two. That's gonna kind of suck, because everything's all wrapped into one. But anyway, I'm just gonna copy and paste everything over into the main folder just to get started, but hopefully there's an easier way for me to transfer or set up some of my ROMs within the particular emulator. All right, so this should just take a few seconds. And while that's doing its thing, let's go ahead and pull up some of the Sega Saturn games. Log into the Saturn folder here. Let's go back. Let's take a look at my ROM pack. We'll go all the way down. Let's see, Saturn. And let's pull up, let's see, Virtual Cop. I hope these ROMs work. Sometimes these are the trickier ones that I have. I have a couple of different sets for Virtual Cop and Virtual Cop 2. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, no biggie. But that should work there. And then let's also pull up, we're not going to do any of the little kiddie stuff like PlayStation or Game Boy Advance or anything like that. Let's also pull up Dreamcast. So let's see what we have for our ROMs. Let's pull up Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That's always one of the noticeable favorites. Got Dreamcast here. Let's make sure we bring in our artwork. Hopefully it reads the artwork. And then let's bring in the games itself. Let's do Marvel vs. Capcom. We'll only do this one here. Let's see. I'm not gonna do Power Stone. Let's do Resident Evil 3. Let's just see if it hot runs. Most of the Dreamcast games should run fine. We haven't had issues like that even on the Pi 4. Not gonna check out any Atomic Wave stuff. Let's see if they have any 3D. Oh, let's see how this handles and performs. But you know, again, this is just a brief test. I'm not going to optimize any of these ROMs. Most of them should need optimization. But you guys got to keep in mind, I know there's a lot of videos out there showing you how emulation will look. First look, but a lot of people don't optimize any of the games for the particular emulator. I don't think 3DO would necessarily require that. I know like your NFL Blitzes and Killer Instincts for your arcade set would. And then, of course, if this had PlayStation 2, you would definitely need to go through the settings and optimize that for this image, but we're not going to touch any of that. All right, let's see. And we don't have any. Let's see. There's Game Gear. I don't see GameCube, and I don't see any Wii. Wow, that's it's pretty unfortunate. You know, with the power that this board now has to offer. You know, personally, I would expect to see some of these newer emulators here. This would give you a reason as to why you would want to download Recalbox. I do know they made an official statement saying that they're not going to support the Ether PlayStation 2 emulator, which is fine, but Dolphin should have been supported. So that's pretty strange that that's not on here, and we'll further investigate that in the future. But yeah, that's really unfortunate because, again, the Pi 5 is much more capable than the Pi 4. So you would expect for them to kind of include some of these things, so that way you get the most bang for your buck. I mean, other than that, then, you know, so far from what I'm looking at, this is just going to be touted as a Pi 5, but a Pi 4 variant type image where you're going to get better performance and you can upscale and get better graphical looks and graphical assistance compared to what you had previously on the Pi 4. All right, so we'll let this complete and then we'll jump right back into it. Oh yeah, and don't forget we're going to add a few N64 games just to kind of see how this runs from a default level. I'm not going to touch or tweak or do anything, so we just want to see how this performs at a first look. All right, so we're logged back into Recalbox, and the one thing that I've noticed so far that I don't like is apparently this does not have a BIOS included. Most, especially the images that I work with, all have a BIOS that's already included for you. And then on top of it, I didn't like the fact that when I reset this, it changed the IP address, and that's not something I really like. That's not something you guys should really have to deal with, but maybe it's something on my end, but just by default, you should not have to change your IP address, you know, when you log in. It should typically stay the same. So let's go ahead and just get our BIOS installed, and we'll keep moving on. Alright, let's first start off with some Dreamcast games. We're going to boot up Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and see how it performs. At least one mandatory BIOS is missing. Your game will not likely run until the required BIOS. Let's go ahead and launch it anyway. All of my BIOSes are transferred over, so I don't know why I'm receiving that error message. All right, let's go. Let's see how this performs. All right, so far looking good. You know, based upon the videos that I've seen, I mean, it has been impressive that everything's running at a decent speed here. I was in the middle of still transferring a few games over, which is probably why it hiccuped there for just a little bit. So that has nothing to do with the image itself. Let's go ahead and start a game, go to arcade mode. All right, that shouldn't happen. Captain America, Heart. Always one of their favorite all-time classics. Oh shoot, you know what? I accidentally logged out. I was trying to see what emulator it was using. All right, I didn't set my buttons at the start of the game, so I can't switch out or do anything right now. You know, I'm not gonna mess with it. I mean, the game is playing great, so just really curious now to see what emulator I'm using. All right, game's playing pretty good. Let's take a look here. All right, let's see. What are we using? Looks like. All right, we're using Flycast here, so we're not using Redrain. It's okay. I prefer Flycast, but you know, it is what it is. Let's go ahead and back out. Let's try another game here. Let's take a look at Resident Evil 3. You know, it's at the time right now, it kind of slips my mind as which ones are the hard, demanding games on Sega Dreamcast. I don't think there are too many here that won't perform in its current state on this Pi, so don't think it'll be an issue. But it's kind of weird though. I'm having issues loading up Killer Instinct right now, but we'll get back to it. All right, we're just going to take a look at some of the video gameplay. And for those of you who are newer to emulation, sometimes you'll see people say a game is running good or great just by loading up the video loading screen or like the intro, like what you're looking at right now. You can't judge it based on this because most of the time it's just a standard video. It's not even actual gameplay. Oh look, we got a freeze there. Like it just froze up on me. So yeah, a lot of that's just like an MP4 sometimes. So I mean, in some rare occasions you can measure the game performance by the intro screen, but most of the time you have to actually go in the game and play it itself. I don't think I've ever played this game before either.
It all began as an ordinary day.
Alright, let's get in here. This game is starting up kind of slow. Okay, it looks good. Not familiar with the original emulation, so we're just kind of playing it by ear. Oh yeah. It's one thing I hated about Resident Evil is figuring out this mess. Just trying to figure out my buttons right now. Oh shoot. Yeah, she's dead. Good old cut screens.
September 28th, daylight.
All right, let's jump over to something a little bit more demanding. I thought I'd get a little more action out of this. I never typically run this kind of game directly for a demo. Nah, I see why. So let's bounce out of this. All right, let's try something else right now. All right, we're jumping into Virtual Cop. And unfortunately, when I jumped into this game, it said controller not configured. That's definitely not a good sign. I'm using a standard Xbox Elite controller. And that should read... Okay, so it is working. I've just never had that message before, and the controller actually didn't work, so... It's kind of an odd circumstance. Normally at the bottom, it would say Microsoft controller connected to port, whatever, at the bottom green, but I guess it did work. Alright, there seems to be a little delay here. Not running as fast as it typically should. Looks like it's okay now. Hope I have to get shot in order for it to reload. Sometimes there's a glitch in this game. I have to figure that out. Alright, this seems to be running okay for the most part. It seems a little slow though. Virtual Cop 2 usually runs a little bit faster than that. Alright, so the next game we're going to load up is 007 GoldenEye. I want to see how this performs. We'll come back to NFL Blitz and Killer Instinct, but for whatever reason I keep getting a system error that's saying that the BIOS file or the ROM is bad. Have no idea why I'm getting that error, never had it before, and all of the corresponding files that I do need are loaded in the system. I do know that I think there have been several other videos on it where people have shown it working, but I don't know, maybe I just have a bad ROM or something. But it's pretty much the same ones that I've always used for all of my personal builds. Alright, now what's going on here with 007? I do not know. I mean, I could spend some more time trying to figure it out, but you know, at the same time, this would actually be the user experience if they have a different ROM set or running into errors like this. Okay, so I don't know why 007 wouldn't work there. Let's try this next N64 ROM. Okay. Don't know what's going on here. Alright, so it looks like the N64 ROM's all jacked up. Let's try one of these here. This is a basic NES game. This isn't one that I loaded. This is one that's already on here. However, I did have some successes with some of the other games. Obviously, this isn't going to test the system. I just wanted to see if it started. Alright, looks like the game is starting. Alright, we're going to jump out. We're not going to spend any time playing that. Got a couple of games here for TurboGrafx-16. Obviously, Sega Saturn runs pretty well. Looks like we got some stuff here in ports, and it doesn't look like we have a browser or desktop, so it doesn't look like we're going to have access to any form of cloud gaming. If we wanted to do that, that's one of the measuring points that I look at now for some of these newer systems, like we have on the Orange Pi 5 and my personal image that's going to be coming out on the RetroPie Pi 5. That's the way technology is going. That's what images should have included, because you can get much more performance and options out of some additional things. I mean, cloud gaming is really nice, and that's pretty much where we are right now, but this is pretty much unfortunate. I don't know why my ROMs aren't loading. In fact, let's go back to it. Let's go to, let's see, arcade settings, high working games. Let's see here, high BIOS, high. Let's see, these are all the systems and stuff we have here. We bounce on this. Enable enhanced view, high BIOS. I mean, the layout of the menu and stuff here is really nice. I wish RetroPie would update, or actually wouldn't be RetroPie, would use a higher advanced version of Emulation Station, which is what it looks like Recalbox and Batacera is using. Alright, so let's go back to main menu, arcade settings, advanced settings, boot settings. Load Kodi at start, no. Resolutions native. Kodi settings here. Here we go. Yeah, I don't particularly like this layout like this, because there's arcade set has so many different arcades, and I don't like separating them from Final Burn Neo versus MAME. It's just time consuming, especially when most of us already have an arcade set. Yeah, like see MAME here. Alright, let's try a different emulator. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good placement, but I don't know. I mean, I like where it is instead of having to actually go where you would typically go to start your ROMs and stuff. Yeah, see, I don't know. I'm not gonna figure that out. I mean, I just think this should be a little bit more straightforward and simple. Again, all my BIOSes are loaded. I hope it's not the actual ROM, but it's the same one that I use everywhere else. But all in all, guys, my thoughts, based upon what I've seen and just some of the gameplay here, if you're going to download and use Recalbox for the Raspberry Pi 5, in fact, it was one of the first images or builds that was ported over. I didn't see a lot of any new systems. Obviously, they don't support any of the newer systems that are out that you can run directly from this emulation station interface, such as Wii. We have PlayStation 2, a couple of other ones as well, cloud gaming. Really disappointed in that fact, but again, this one is tailored. If you have a Pi 5, you want something that has the performance much better than a Raspberry Pi 4, then I would go ahead and download something like this. This will be okay image if more things were more or less straightforward in terms of just booting up some of these games. But for whatever reason, I do not like the layout for this arcade set because you have a lot of Capcom games and everything, which are going to be under Final Burn Neo. And then, of course, you have this folder here, which is going to be your standard arcade set. But for whatever reason, now why is this loading? I'm clicking on main, but it's popping up N64. Oh, Jesus Christ. I don't believe this. Now, why is main popping up here? Oh, my God. This doesn't make any sense. I clicked on... Let me see here. Do I have to hit escape or something on here? Where's my keyboard? Let me just exit out. Yeah, now this doesn't make any sense. It shows me an N64, but there's the main, but it took me to N64. I don't know, screw it. All right, I hope you guys just got something out of this. I won't be using this again. I have no idea why I'm clicking on MAME and N64 is popping up. Then it takes me into a MAME library with some other things going on. This thing must be buggy. Something must be up, but hey, you know, I saved you guys some time and effort from having to use something like this. But that's just frustrating. Even after I got all this stuff on here running, I couldn't recommend something like this. You know, it's probably why you don't hear too much about Recalbox. It's amazing how people hype this stuff up, but how could you not? How have you run across an error like this where I'm pulling up a MAME game and then, oh, now all of a sudden the library pops up? Wow. All right, you guys have a good night. This is Kiodiekin signing out. Make sure you guys check out my Patreon and my other Facebook groups as well. I have some other videos coming up with retropie tutorials. And again, I also branched off and started an official Kiodiekin YouTube channel. So all of my RC drone videos and footage is going to go to that specific channel, as well as we have Kiodiekin where I do fireworks if you guys are interested in that sort of thing. So we will be back with some more Raspberry Pi reviews, tips, tutorials, and setups. You guys have a great night. I will catch you guys later.